This is a continuation on the Keith Spencer. I'm in the developmental and personal history, family relationships. I might have done some of this already, but the defendant's mother currently is 61 and works as an office manager. He said their relationship was quotes pretty good end quotes during his developmental years. But during his teen years, he was a quotes mama's boy. End quote. He described his mother, nonetheless, as narcissistic and extremely self-centered, uh, and added quotes I can't stand it end quotes. He's unsure of how that affected him her self-centeredness affected him during his pre-adolescent years. Uh, the defendant's father is currently 60. Next paragraph: the defendant's father is currently in his 60s and retired as a park maintenance worker. Uh, Describing his father as emotionally distant during his developmental years, uh, he said that his father seemed like a quote shell of a person end quotes. Nonetheless, he had some fond memories of his father during those early years. Currently, father uh, are quotes best friends end quotes. And his father has blossomed in more recent years and said that is very supportive to the defendant. He noted in terms of his father's the complexity of his father's emotionality, that his older sister got pregnant when she was 15 years old. His mother, being more self-centered, quotes, checked out, end quotes, whereas the father was very supportive of and present during that family crisis year, during that period of the family life. Next paragraph, Mr. S said that he gets along uh, well with his sisters, who were both supportive of him, particularly his older sister. His younger sister is supportive but has children. The detective has spoken to, during the investigation of the incident offense, the detective spoke to his younger sister, and according to the defendant, said, quote, "Your brother is a monster. Keep her, keep him away from your kids." His younger sister has since been cautious with her, which although he believes he and his sister are working out their relationship. Older sister has children as well, and then has a good describes himself as having a good relationship with all of his nieces and nephews. Next paragraph. In terms of family life, the defendant indicated the family is religious, non-denominational Christians, and that he was very involved in the church during his developmental years. He also noted that his younger sister and parents recently relocated to Arizona, although he keeps in touch with them regularly and will be making visits regularly to Arizona. Next subsection, pre-adolescent behavior and psychosocial functioning. Uh, the defendant was free of any behavior problems during his developmental pre-adolescent years, such as running away from home, temper tantrums, bullying of others, being bullied, stealing, etc. Uh, he remembers has no recall of any emotional difficulties during those years. He was very outgoing and social, and for a year he played sports, baseball, and lessened behavior and psychosocial function. Uh, the defendant was free of any conduct difficulties during his adolescent years. He said he became more of a quote smartass end quotes in school, always wanting uh, acting like a class clown to quotes get laughs and he continued being quite social during his adolescent years. He did know, however, he had panic attacks. He did not understand. He does not have an understanding of what prompted them, but he did not see a mental health professional, but was given Paxil by his primary care physician. Education. Mr. S has always been a good student. During the elementary and junior high school years, he was in the gifted and talented education program, parentheses GATE, all capital letters for gay, close brackets. By high school, he had continued taking Paxil. Um, stopped doing his homework and became more disinterested in school. He speculates that it might had to do with his emerging sexuality, becoming more aware of his that he was that he had a gay sexual identity. He decided to take the proficiency exam and passed it in his junior year, and then began taking classes at Golden West Junior College. He's currently one class. He dropped out of, stopped attending college after and needs still one class to obtain his associate's degree. Next section, psychosexual history. Mr. B was never sexually abused during his developmental years. He began masturbating, he believes, at about the age of 12 or 13, and did so, quotes, a few times, end quotes, a week. He would fantasize about men, quotes, naked men, end quotes. Currently, he masturbates about 4 times a week and watches gay porn. Next paragraph, the defendant said he has no history of dating either men or women. He has had no heterosexual experience, although he said that he is, quotes, curious, end quote. His sexual contacts have been short-term in nature, usually with, quotes, hookups, end quotes, or male prostitutes. When asked about his desire for emotional connections with a partner, he said that he of course has such a desire, but it is, quotes, hard to believe someone would want to be in a relationship with me, and that in quotes, period. Next paragraph, the defendant has never had any sexually transmitted diseases. Next paragraph, I explored the defendant's interest or experience in the paraphilias. He said he has an unusual fantasy, liking to watch other men defecate. He pointed out, he said he sees that he enjoys seeing this in porn and pornography, but he said he has no interest of it occurring, quotes, in person, end quote. Focused on his any kind of pedophilic desires. He said he feels an attraction to adolescent boys, to teenagers, no attraction to male children. I asked about if he ever views child porn. He said that he's had child porn on the nudist. He has observed nudist videos, photography, and videos of nudist camps. But he particularly is not specifically interested in child pornography. Parentheses, see clinical interview below, close parentheses. The defendant sees himself as having struggled with a sexual addiction. He said he's in treatment trying to figure out, quotes, what that actually looks like. He admitted he has an quotes, unhealthy, end quotes, preoccupation with sexuality. He described himself as not feeling sexually aroused all the time, but he's always viewing his sexual. He's always at dating apps, on those apps, and interacting virtually with males. There have been males who wanted to meet with him in person, but he is reluctant and fearful of doing so. Again, sensitive to rejection. Employment history. As noted, prior to his arrest, he had been working for Image Solutions as a product development specialist. And subsequent to his arrest, he began working about 7 months ago for the Cox Enterprises as a dealer service specialist. Prior to those positions, he had worked. The defendant had worked for TSC Apparels in the distribution and manufacturing company sells T-shirts. He worked there for about 7 years, but was laid off due to COVID. Before that position, Mr. Spence was employed as an intern pastor at Father's House, a Christian church in Huntington Beach. He worked there for about 3 or 4 years. It was at that position that he was terminated after he expressed some attraction during a period of intoxication to a teenager. Before working at the church, he worked in customer services for U.S. Airways at John Wayne Airport. He did that. He began that job when he was about 20 years old. He said at that time he got into a gambling addiction and ended up accessing needing money through the payday loans. He was unable, which he was unable to pay. They had called his work and which led him to quotes panic and quit his job. The company actually wanted him to return, even in recent years, that he still has a job there if he wants it. Through support network. Mr. Spencer described himself as having a broad supportive network. He continues to be close to his parents, particularly his father. He also has a good relationship with his sisters, who are supportive, even his younger sister. He has a good relationship with his nieces. He has said he has, quotes, a lot of friends, end quotes, that he met through sober living that do not drink, use drugs. He's socially active with many of the individuals in his treatment program, all of whom are sober. With regard to his parents, he said that they plan to come to his next court hearing, indication of their supportiveness. He also said he's very he has good relationship with his sister's husbands. Clinical forensic interview. I noted to Mr. Spencer that there were 2 separate incidents of him being accused of exposing his genitalia. He said that on both of those occasions he was drinking heavily and had finished at least 3 bottles of wine. Prior to, he'd been drinking that much wine for about, on a daily basis for at least 2.5 years during a period of time he hasn't lived in La Habra. Before that time, he was drinking vodka on a regular basis, 10 to 12 shots every night, doing that for about 4 or 5 years. I asked him about, I returned with him and to discuss the 2 exposure incidences. Mr. Spencer recalled sitting on the patio smoking a cigarette before going to bed and being called as somewhat spotty because of the alcohol. Alcohol use. I asked if he believes he was aroused at the time. He answered affirmatively. He added, quotes, "I don't know what made me aroused." He remembers, or what he recalls is having people in the pool area, quotes, looking at me and asking himself, quotes, "Why is everybody looking at me?" He left, then went into his apartment, shut the lights, and quotes, passed out. And he said he wouldn't have even recalled the incident if he hadn't received, having checked his phone the next morning, in which the La Habra Police Department left a message saying for him. He first wondered why they had called, why they would want to speak to him, and then realized that the night before, that it was related to that evening before. The second incident was similar. He was intoxicated. At this time, however, somebody yelled up to him, "What the fuck? That puts your junk away," end quote. He also saw some teenage boys, quotes, taking pictures, end quotes, of him. He thought to him, Mr. Spencer said he thought to himself, "What is happening?" Question mark, exclamation point. And after which he, quotes, ran inside, end quote. Uh, Again, he received a message the following morning from the La Habra Police Department saying they wanted to speak with him. At that point, he said he felt humiliated and thought, quotes, if someone did that, I'd want to beat the shit out of him, end quotes. So, after the police interviewed him and arrested him, I noted to the defendant that he saved images of on his he saved 2 images on his phone that the police found. Prepubescent females. He said, asked why he saved them. He said, quotes, I don't know. No recall of the videos that was saved on his. You put that of 2 boys. I'm sorry, not of 2 girls. The image. He admitted that with the images, he doesn't know, but he admitted that it sort of aroused him. He said, however, that that such an incident would arousal would happen when he's intoxicated. When he's sober, he said, the thought of it makes me ill, end quote. Parentheses note that the images were erased. Police were able to retrieve them. But to Mr. Spencer that there were that the police forensic specialists were able to retrieve multiple videos on his phone of prepubescent females, prepubescent children, which the police thought was him being, and that included the defendant masturbating while viewing nude images and videos. The defendant adamantly denied being in any such video or even knowing how the videos were on his phone. He admitted that he had become addicted to pornography, but while intoxicated, and his addiction and led him to progress into viewing sites, into going to sites where there are a lot of quote strange people. He said that the videos may have been downloaded onto his phone without him even knowing it. He denied ever looking at child, searching out or going directly to child pornography sites. Next section, mental status examination. Appearance. Mr. Spencer, a 7-year-old single Caucasian male, who was examined in my office at the my Newport Beach office on the above noted date. He was seen for approximately 3.25 hours. He was casually and neatly dressed, cooperative and verbal. He appeared to be a reliable historian. Mood and affect. The defendant's mood appeared euthymic, although he expressed quite a lot of apprehension, and he described himself, his arrest, as being traumatic to him. Currently, his medications include lithium, 300 milligrams, Eridol, 1/2 milligram, Ativan, 1 milligram, and gabapentin, 800 milligrams. All his medications are taken daily. He noted that the gabapentin in particular helped assuage his acute reactive anxiety. The other medications are for his for dysphoria and his general dysphoria and mood instability. He expressed no symptoms of social anxiety or obsessive compulsiveness. Affect was somewhat expansive but appropriate to mood. Thought processes and content. The defendant's thoughts are directed with no signs of looseness of associations, tangentiality, or circumstantiality. It's free of auditory visual hallucinations or of any paranoia. Insight and judgment. The defendant's understanding of himself. The defendant is aware that he has difficult problems relating to sexuality that need to be addressed in treatment. His judgment is his capacity for self-reflection is positive side, and should help with his judgment. Will help with his development of further insight. His judgment is adequate during sober. Cognition. Based on general clinical interview, I'd opine that the defendant functions within the functions likely in the based on general clinical interview and history, it's likely that the defendant functions within the above average range of intellectual. He was also administered a mini mental status exam, which assesses the individual's capacity to be oriented, language expression and reception, attention and concentration, reading ability, as well as visuospatial ability. Mr. S obtained a score of 30 out of 30, indicating no cognitive impairment. Next section, psychological testing. Results. MDQ. First paragraph. Mr. S obtained a score of 0 on the MDQ, suggesting that there is no evidence for episodes of mania or hypomania. For example, he does not report experiencing episodes when he feels excessive amounts of energy, such that he is excessive amounts of energy, or that he has periods of pressured speech. He's not experienced periods when he feels excessive. He feels more self-confident than usual, or episodes of grandiosity. Next test is HBQ. The defendant obtained a score of 65, suggesting that he has a clinically significant that hypersexual urges and fantasies and potential behaviors are clinically significant and are at a level that is considered clinically significant and above the norm. Next report, PAI. First subsection, validity. The validity scales indicate that Mr. Spencer attended appropriately to the item content and responded in consistent fashion. The similar item. There is no evidence with respect to positive impression management. There's no evidence to suggest that he was motivated to portray himself as relatively free of common faults. Testing interestingly suggested that he's in denial of his drinking problem. However, likely he's quite open about the destructiveness of his drinking to his life. He has been sober for and likely responded accordingly. That minimizes drinking. Generally, though, there's no evidence of positive impression management. Generally, there is no evidence of positive impression management. In addition, there is no evidence of negative impression management. Any attempt to portray himself in a overly dysfunctional fashion. The results of the PAI are valid. Subsection clinical / substantive findings. Mr. Spencer's clinical PAI profile is marked by significant elevations across several scales, and this indicates a broad range of clinical features, clinical psychological features, and a possibility of multiple diagnoses. The configuration of his scales strongly indicate that he has a problem with alcohol abuse, and that he is experiencing predominant stress, that is experiencing significant stress and anxiety. His anxiety and alcohol use is likely related in a number of ways, as alcohol serves as a functional role of tension reduction and relieving his stress and internal distress. His profile suggests he ruminates about his life and that the drinking has been an essential ruminating preoccupation. He's likely anxious and guilty about the impairment that his drinking has caused him socially and has disrupted his life and his life in general. He has likely had great difficulty in cutting down on his drinking and may have made repeated attempts of sobriety in the past. Next paragraph. Mr. S indicated that he is experiencing significant fears and anxieties surrounding some situation and is likely and may have and experiences and may have experienced maladaptive behavior in an attempt to control his anxiety. Note that is a more immediate anxiety. The testing suggests he experiencing a traumatic event in the recent past. This is likely an expression of his stress and anxiety over the his arrest and its sequelae. However, the testing suggests that his anxiety has been more general and protracted. His anxiety he's plagued by worry to the degree that it will interfere at times with his concentration. On an affective level, he feels a great deal of tension with difficulty relaxing, which likely leads to fatigue. Next paragraph. In addition, the test, Mr. S reports a number of difficulties consistent with significant depression. He's plagued by thoughts of worthlessness, hopelessness, and personal failure. He openly admits to sadness, loss of interest in normal activities, and the sense of anhedonia. His depression is experienced more subjectively and emotionally, and with less physiological signs of depression. At least currently, he is less. He does not experience appetite. For example, at least currently, is not experiencing appetite difficulties or sleep or a major disruption in sleep patterns. This may be due to the fact that he's on multiple psychotropic medications that are helping him physiologically. Would you add this to the paragraph regarding his drinking before I talk about it? Before I talk about this and where you think it goes in, and I'll edit it. The defendant's drinking has likely impacted his social, as noted, his drinking impacted his life, the defendant's life generally. Is likely got him involved in to the point that his activities were illegal, which of course is consistent with his clinical picture. Now I'm going back down after I talked about the depression. Mr. S's PAI on Mr. S's PAI, he describes personality styles he describes a number of problematic personality traits. His major problem appears to be in the area of identity issues. He appears uncertain about his major life issues, and has little sense of direction or purpose. His self-concept appears to be poorly established, and his self-perception may vary, at times from states of harsh self-criticism and self-doubt to periods of self-concept, of relative self-confidence and intact self-esteem. As his self-esteem is likely interfere with his interpersonal relationships, which leaves him feeling which in turn leaves him feeling, which in turn perpetuates his sense of unfulfillment and inadequacy. His self-esteem is fragile and likely plummets in response to slights from others. Although his depressive symptoms do not manifest with physiological symptoms, when he's stressed or feeling unfulfilled, may tend to somaticize symptoms, may tend to somaticize his emotional distress, which interferes, which will interfere, for instance, through physical channels. This may, for an instance, this may be one of the sources of his anxiety and his anxiety and tendency and previous episodes, that is his previous episodes of panic. May also engender in him a sense of malaise, M-A-L-A-I-S-E, general lethargy. The defendant is likely currently experiencing notable stress and turmoil, the acute nature of his stress is likely related to his arrest and its sequelae, and therefore situational in nature. Testing indicates that he feels a committed social support system, favorable prognostic indicator. The testing indicates that Mr. S experiences no significant problems with thinking disturbance or sense of suspiciousness. There's no evidence of aggressiveness or hostility. There's no evidence of that he experiences mania, that had episodes of mania or of mania. Okay, I'll continue on the next dictation.